Welcome you all to International Finance course unit. So today we are going to discuss about another important aspect in international finance discipline, that is we identified as balance of payment. So this is one of the area that currently in our economy as well as other economies are mostly discussed, and most of the countries are facing lot of issues relating to the balance of payment. Actually, even it says the balance of payment, majority of the countries are having imbalance with their payment with relating to the international finance transaction. So as usual, if I recall you with our previous sessions as far as we discussed in the international finance subject. So in session number 1, we discussed about the importance of learning international finance, and session number 2, we learn about the foreign exchange rates and indeterminants. And in the session number 3, we discuss the foreign exchange regimes relating how nations are determined or how nations are choose their foreign exchange systems. And then 4th session we dedicated to foreign exchange markets. So under that you discuss spot market, forward market, foreign currency market, and future foreign option currency options market. And then 5th session, we discussed the balance of, purchasing power parity condition or parity conditions and how it influenced to determine the foreign exchange rates. So at that session, we discussed how relative inflation and how relative interest rates going to influence to the nation's foreign exchange rates. And in the 6 sessions, we discuss about the foreign exchange risk. So according to the session number 6, you learn different type of foreign exchange risk, and we learn how hedging play as a basic tool to manage foreign exchange risk. And in our last session, that is our session number 7, we identified the foreign currency derivatives. So derivatives are some sort of technique or approaches we use to minimize or manage, to manage risk of changing interest rates and to manage the cost of the borrowings. So at that time also I emphasized you hedging and derivatives are two different concepts. Okay, hedging is relative with the foreign exchange risk, and derivatives are mainly dealing with the risk associated with interest rate fluctuation and the cost of the borrowings. So under the derivatives, we discussed so many tools like interest rate swap and currency swap and forward contracts, as well as forward rate agreements, etc. So then after having all the basics idea behind the international finance course unit relating to how to determine exchange rate, what are the factors influencing to change exchange rate, and what sort of risk we have to face when we are dealing with foreign, that means international transaction, and what sort of market are available to do international transaction, and what sort of mechanisms are there to manage foreign exchange risk, as well as when we are dealing with the finance, that means borrowings and lending, what sort of risk we are facing and how we are going to manage it. We all discuss those things. Now, as far as we discuss all the things, we are dealing with the transactions. අපි මෙච්චර දවස් මේ වෙනකන් අපි හැමදේම කතා කරේ කොහොමද මේ ඉන්ටර්නැෂනල් ට්‍රාන්සැක්ෂන් වෙන්නේ, ඊට කොහොමද මේවත් එක්ක තියෙන රිස්ක් එක අපි හැන්ඩල් කරන්නේ, මොන වගේ ටෙක්නික්ස්ද අපිට තියෙන රිස්ක් එක හැන්ඩල් කරගන්න, මේ වගේ fundamental concepts තමයි අපි sessions 7ක් වෙනකම්ම කතා කරේ. Now, in the session number 8, we are coming to another important aspects in international finance. In here, we are trying to identify how we are going to record those foreign currency related transaction or international transaction. එතකොට අපි අද කතා කරන්නේ session number 8 එකකින් මෙතුවක්කල් අපි කරපු transaction, right? Maybe import export, maybe foreign borrowings or foreign lendings, right? Foreign currency investments, foreign assets investment, whatever, arbitrage or whatever, right? How we are going to record them? අපි එතකොට session 8 එකෙන් කතා කරන්නේ කොහොමද මේ කතා කරපු හැම transaction එකක්ම recordings කරන්නේ. අපි record keeping aspect එක තමයි මේ session number 8 එකේදී කතා කරන්නේ. So session number 8 is based on the balance of payment discussion, and as usual you have to refer the relevant chapter in your recommended textbook. For this purpose you have to refer chapter number 5 in your recommended textbook. Right. So moving on with the learning objectives, let's see. So we are going to distinguish between the basic categories coming under the balance of payment, that is current account and financial account. And also we try to explain the link between current and financial account. And also we try to identify the link between domestic economic behavior and international flows of goods and capital, right? What sort of actions that domestic economy can be influenced to the international flow of goods and capital. Right? So these are the main learning objectives behind the today's session. And as I mentioned you earlier, now in session number 8, we are going to identify how we are going to record the international transaction. Right. So balance of payment, or as usual, we identify it as a BOP. Right? That is a abbreviation we are used for the balance of payment, BOP. So BOP records a country's value of the transaction between its resident, businesses and government with the rest of the world for a specific period of time. Now, as I mentioned you earlier, now here what we are doing is, here what we are trying to identify is how we are going to record the country's value of foreign transaction with rest of the world for a specific time period. Normally it is for a financial year. Right? Within the financial year, how many imports we have done, how many exports we have done, and how many foreign borrowings we have obtained, and how many lendings we incurred. Right? Likewise, we have to record them. So that recording part we identified as a balance of payment. Okay, so why it is called balance of payment without saying that some sort of foreign transaction statement? Right? I make it a balance of payment. Right? එහෙම නැත්නම් මේකට කියන්න තිබ්බනේ foreign exchange statement හරි මොකක් හරි කියන එක. Right? We identified as a balance of payment mean every country there should have a balance between what they spend and what they earn. Right? එතකොට අපි ආදායම ගන්න ආදායමට සරිලන විදිහට වියදම් කිරීම තමයි මෙතන මේ balance of payment කියන එකෙන් අදහස් වෙන්නේ. Right? We will discuss so many details in later in our session going on. Right? So simply remind that BOP is an accounting statement that summarizes all the economic transaction between resident of the home country and resident of the rest of the world for a given time period. Okay, actually now you all are familiarized with the accounting statement, no? Right? Profit and loss account, then balance sheet and equity change statement, etc., etc. And likewise here also we are doing double entry part, that means credit transaction and debit transaction. Whatever we received as an income, okay, we put it them as a credit transaction, and whatever we are paid as expenses, we put it as a debit transaction. Okay, that is our credit and debit transaction. So politicians and the business press realize the importance of this trade and capital flow. Now we know in international transaction, we can do import and export, as well as we can exchange the capital, right? We can invest our money into foreign denominated assets, or we can obtain loan from the foreign countries. So that's, we call it as a capital flows, right? If we receive foreign direct investment, that is a capital inflow, right? If we are going to buy the foreign denominated assets, that is a capital outflow. We identify all the things when we are discussing covered interest arbitrage parity. So I believe that you remember the things relating to the capital inflows and capital outflows. So government foreign exchange policies are often geared towards dealing with BOP problem. That's why I mentioned you, most of the countries, actually almost all the countries are facing with this BOP problems. That means how we are going to balance our income with the expenses, right? If we are expending more than our income, we have a problem. If we have earned more than our expenses, that also having a problem. Okay, so every country, almost every country are facing with the BOP problems. Okay, so balance of payment, normally we identify it should have to be balanced with the foreign currency reserve with foreign currency payment, right? If there is some sort of surplus or deficit between that foreign currency payment and foreign currency received, then we are having BOP imbalance. Right? That is, we call BOP imbalance. තරාදී එක පැත්තක් බර වුණා වගේ තමයි. ආදායමට වඩා වියදම වැඩි වුණත් ප්‍රශ්නයක්, වියදමට වඩා ආදායම වැඩි වුණත් ප්‍රශ්නයක්. Okay, so that is the economic policy. So government has to be very keen with their economic policies with the BOP problem. So we also experiencing that sort of issues in our country because of the fiscal policy, monetary policy issues with the BOP problem. Right, we will discuss those things when we are dealing with the BOP categories and things. So BOP reports the country's international performance in trading with other nations. So we already know it, right? Based on the trading, import and export. BOP considered as a list of items behind the supply and demand of foreign currency. That's why I told you, in the balance of payment, we report every sources for a demand for a foreign currency, as well as every sources behind the supply of foreign currency. If it is an export, that is a supply of foreign currency. If it is an import, that is a demand for foreign currency. If you are going to invest into the foreign denominated assets, there is a demand for foreign currency. If you are taking a loan from the foreign country, that is a supply of foreign currency. When we are going to pay the loan interest, that is a demand for foreign currency. When we are receive some donations or some aids from the foreign country, that is a supply of foreign currency. When tourists are traveling to Sri Lanka, that is a supply of foreign currency. When we are traveling into other country, there is a demand for foreign currency. So you can see, so all the source of demand and supply of foreign currency, we have to incurred or include into the balance of payment. So other thing is how we are going to identify those sources. That means how we are going to calculate those supply and demand of foreign currency sources. So every country has so many mechanisms to collect all the details regarding how many imports we have generated, how many exports we have generated. Likewise, there are so many methods, so many documents, so many mechanisms are available to collect the data relating to the balance of payment. First one is, most important thing is customs declaration. So we know that we cannot make any import or export without declaring to the custom. අපි දන්නවා custom එකට එහෙම නැත්නම් රේගුවට දැනුම් නොදී රටකට භාණ්ඩ ආනයනය කිරීම හෝ අපනයනය කරන්න බෑ. It is true there are some sort of malpractices are happening, but in official way, when countries are importing or exporting, they have to declare it to the customs. So then in the custom declaration, we can collect how many imports we incurred, as well as how many export we generated within the given time period or financial year. Another one is the international transaction reporting system. That is data we can gather through banking system. So as we all know, when we are going to pay, that means if we are doing any imports, we have to open letter of credit that we call LC. And when we are opening LC, we have to do it through banking system. Then through the banking system, we can get the information relating to the import data. And when we are receiving foreign currency from our export to our remittance or something, people have to deposit into our account, right? Then even again from the banking system, we can collect how many export income we generated for a financial period, right? Then that is a second source of gathering information or collecting information relating to the international transaction. And other administrative record of the government, like for an example, when we are having obtained loans from the foreign country, as well as when we are investing, the government are investing for a foreign denominated assets like USA bonds and something, those are recorded into the government. And central bank reports, right? Central bank record, because central bank is the last resort of the money lender, that where it serves as a government official advisor of the investment. Then central bank know how many loans the government has been obtained, has been incurred, right? How many interest payment we have to pay, right? So we have so many repercussions regarding those statistics in recently, but in official manner, central bank has to keep all the records relating to the financial capital inflows and capital outflows. And not only that, central bank official report, they also have carried survey, right, through the other agencies, like there may be some sort of subsidiary companies or some outsourcing agencies there to collect that sort of information. So by looking all the related detailed transactions, then country develop balance of payment. Normally, Central Bank of Sri Lanka generated it. That means that is the authority party who prepared most of the country's balance of payment. So then you identified what is the BOP, right? What it is included, and what sort of document we need to refer when we have to prepare BOP. So now let's look at the main categories coming under the balance of payment. That means the main accounts we can see under balance of payment. So I believe that you already aware all the things in your basic knowledge, okay? And even day-to-day discussion, we also come across with this sort of BOP categories. So it's identified as a current account, capital account, and financial account. So BOP has three main type of accounts: current account, capital account, and financial account. And sometimes some of the countries having those three accounts as it is, but majority, that means most of the countries are keeping current account as a separate account, but capital and financial account as a single account, right? So that is depend on the nation's policy to maintain the BOP categories, we can see, right? Even in the Sri Lankan BOP records, we can see the current account as one particular area and capital and financial account as another particular area. Not the three accounts, but we have only two accounts in Sri Lankan context. Even India and USA also, they are following the same. At the end of the presentation, I will show you some examples relating to the BOP records. Right. So then let's look at one by one what are the things coming under the current account and what sort of information we need to record. So current account, even in your accounting knowledge, you know, those are short-term accounts. අපි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් දන්නවනේ current account එකක ජංගම ගිණුමක සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි අතුලත් කරන්නේ කෙටි කාලීන ගනුදෙනු. Right? ඒක තමයි accounting standard. So same standard we applied for a foreign transaction also. So current accounts, we record the goods and services transaction. That is our main imports and export related transaction. When the countries are import something, it has to be reported as a debit value to the balance of payment. And when we are having exports, that transaction going to be recorded as a credit value to the balance of payment under current account. Not only the import and export, we are also another short-term income flows we are receiving from ownership of foreign assets. That means the dividend as well as investment income, right? We interest payment we are receiving for our investment in foreign denominated assets, right? And the loan payment, right? That means loan interest payment. That also we have to incorporate into current account. So the import and export විතර නෙමෙයි current account එකක තියෙන්නේ. අපි ඊට අමතරව කරන short term income and expenses also we need to record, right? Like investment income or the income flow from ownership of the foreign assets, as well as the expenses we have to incur for a ownership of the foreigners to our domestic assets. And income from labors, that means the employee compensation, right? These days we are having so many issues with that employee foreign remittances, right? So that is another main source coming under the current account, and that is the most powerful source coming under the current account in Sri Lankan context. අපේ ලංකාවට අනුව බැලුවොත් current account එකක ලොකුම දායකත්වය දෙන්නේ foreign remittances. So that is why we are facing so many issues these days due to the lack of receiving foreign employee remittances these days through the official channels, right? Official channel ring આવොත් විතරනේ අපිට record කරගන්න පුළුවන්. හරි එහෙම නැතුව අපි කියන්නේ black market එකෙන් ගිය ගමන් මේව record වෙන්නේ නැහැ. So then country doesn't know how many income we received from foreigners through their foreign employments. Okay. And the other thing coming under the current account recording is unilateral transfer of money. That means no specific services we are incurring, but we received some money as well as we are paying something, like foreign aids. දැන් අපිට විදේශ ආධාර හම්බෙන්න අපි ඉසිදයක් කළා නෙමෙයි, අපි සේවාවක් සපයලා නෙමෙයි. That's given as some sort of donation, right? And gift. The gift එකක් අපි දෙන්නේ සේවාවක් කරාම නෙමෙයිනේ. That is we show how much of how we valued others commitment or something, right? එහෙමනේ අපි gift එකක් දෙන්නේ, right? And donations. Okay, foreign aids and donations. So foreign aid කියන්නේ ආධාර, donations, it's also similar to that. In Sinhala term it is ආධාර, but two different things are there, right? Like when we are facing some sort of natural disaster like tsunami, right? People are given us a foreign aids. That is not the donations, right? That's our foreign aids, විදේශ ආධාර. හදිසි අවස්ථාවකදී අපිට හම්බෙන්නේ. So donation mean when people are having some sort of excess thing, they try to transfer to us, right? කොට ඒගොල්ලෝ ඒ වෙලාවට අපිට දෙනවා. That is another type of the foreign currency sources we are receiving to the country, but that we are not doing any specific service to earn that thing, right? Not only the receiving, we can also pay, like when the Nepal having some sort of natural disaster, Sri Lanka provides some donation through tea. So අපි ඒ රටට tea දුන්නා donation එකක් විදිහට. Right? Not a donation, it is a foreign aid. විදේශ ආධාරයක් විදිහට අපි තේ දුන්නා. කියන්නේ අපි සල්ලි අය කළා නෙමෙයි. We provide tea. It is not export. Right? That is another sort of transferring money. And also grants, right? අපිට grants හම්බෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. Right? When we are having some sort of scholarships, right? We receive grants, right? If we want to do good, some sort of valuable research, there are so many foreign institutions are available to provide grants, right? So grants, actually, we are not paying back. We only do research and the outcome is revealed to rest of the world, but the specific organization doesn't get any benefit. But there may be indirect benefit to them, but there is no such a two-way transaction that we take something, but we are not paying back. Right? So these type of transaction we call unilateral transfer of money. So even that type of thing we have to record into the current account. Now remember, you might be having wonder, even if you are not paying back or if you don't do any specific services, why we have to keep them as a current account? But remember, balance of payment, we have to receive whatever the amount we taken or we received from foreign currency. So foreign currency එකක් විදියට අපිට මොන විදියකින් හොයන දෙයක් අපි record විදියට තියාගත යුතුයි. And remember, those are coming with the official channel. Since BOP doesn't reveal anything, any transaction which are done under the unofficial way. Unofficially whenever make a transfer in record වෙන්නේ නැහැ. So those are the transaction we recorded to the current account, right? And current account, as I mentioned earlier, those are short-term transactions. And capital account, in accounting background, you might know that in the capital account, we recorded long-term transaction. capital account. But in here, in the balance of payment, the meaning of the capital account is some sort of different. Right? The make a accounting standard capital account. The balance of payment capital account right? In the balance of payment, the capital account doesn't mean that we are recording long-term transaction with related to the foreign currency. Now here what we are recording is the debt forgiveness and transfer of goods and official assessed by migrant as they entered or leave the country. Right? So here what we only do some sort of temporary transaction. Right? This capital account, we record only temporary type of or temporary manner transaction. Okay, so likewise the debt forgiveness. Then debt forgiveness, it's very rarely happen, right? And transfer of goods and financial assets by migrants, right? When the migrants are transferring some financial assets as well as their goods, those are temporary goods. Okay, so that kind of transaction, there is a specific account we need to record. So that record we call capital account, right? So those are not short-term transaction and those are not long-term transaction, but those are very occasionally or very rarely happening transaction. Okay, so the capital account records the capital transfer that offset transaction that are undertaken without exchanging in fixed assets or their financing. Okay. Now remember, in a current account, we record short-term transaction, right? And when we are discussing next, the financial account, that is our debt and liability, debt and assets transaction, now liability and assets transaction. But in between that, we are having another account called capital account. So in here, the capital account, we are not recording any long-term transaction. The capital account long-term transaction record, right? And it record only some sort of temporary occurring transaction like debt forgiveness, transfer of goods and financial assets by migrants, right? විදේශිකයෝ රටට එනකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ ට්‍රාන්ස්ෆර් කරන බඩු සහ ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඇසෙස් සහ නැවත ඒගොල්ලෝ යනකොට ඒක ඉබේම ඔෆ්සෙට් ඔෆ් වෙනවා. those type of things we have to record. Right now, you might be wondering why we need to record those things, even they are set of it. But remember, in a balance of payment, whatever the foreign currency we received and whatever the foreign currency we paid, even it as a temporary transaction, it is compulsory to report. Right? Here we are not exchanging any fixed assets. Right? Exchange right? We just take the values, and when the migrants are moving the country or they are leaving the country, that asset is going to be set off. Right? So for an example, in your textbooks also given, the migrant funds represent the shift of migrants' net worth to or from Sri Lanka. So සාමාන්‍යයෙන් රටක තියෙන migrant fund එක. ඒතර පිටරටින් ලංකාවට මිනිස්සෙක් එනකොට එයාගේ assets වලට අදාළව account එක open වෙනවා. ඊපස්සේ එයා නැවත ලංකාවෙන් යනකොට ඒ assets එක set off වෙනවා. So that is we call capital account, right? So this is a minor account for most purposes, specifically some sort of temporary occurring transaction, right? So therefore, don't get confused with capital account and financial account. In the වැඩිපුරම බරතබල මේක කියන්නේ. So ගොඩක් අය capital account එක financial account එකත් එක්ක පටලවනවා. Right? But capital account, we are recording only some sort of temporary occurring transaction. Okay. And current account, we are recording short-term transaction which are occurring regularly. Import and export, we are having every day. And employee remittance, we are receiving and we are paying every day. Right? Interest payment, interest receiving, we have incurring every day. Right? But those time period of the transactions are short. Right? That sort of thing we reported into current account, but temporary occurring transaction like the migrant financial assistance things, we reported into capital account. So that is a difference between current and capital account. Then we come into the another most important account category coming under the balance of payment. That is we call financial account. My financial account capital account the reason for this kind of misunderstanding is because most of the BOP accounts, capital and financial account recorded as a single account. Capital and financial account recorded එක account එකක් විදියට ගොඩක් BOP වල. But there are differences, right, between capital and financial account. So please understand that difference very precisely. Then we are going to look at the financial account. So it shows the public and private investment and lending activities. So this is the account we are showing the capital inflow and capital outflow. So මේක තමයි අපි පෙන්නන්නේ අපි දිගු කාලීනව සිද්ධ කරන ගනුදෙනු. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි assets වල ආයෝජනය කරන්න, ණය ගන්න, ඒ සියලු දේ රෙකෝඩ් වෙන්නේ financial account එකේ. So financial account normally we identified as a transaction which are recording affect to the nation's wealth and its net creditor position, right? So if we have invest more into the foreign assets denominators, right? So we are having net creditor position. But if we are taking more loans from the foreign countries, we are getting net debtor, right? Net debtor, okay, net debitor. Right? Based on the financial account, so it records the transaction which are directly impact to the nation's net creditor and net debitor position. So remember, this financial account actually record the long-term capital inflows and capital outflows. Right? So in a financial account, we can see different type of transactions. Right? Financial account is a different type of transaction. So first one we identified as portfolio investment. And portfolio investment. So portfolio investment is the purchase of financial assets with the maturity greater than 1 year. Right? When we are going to purchase, or if we are going to purchase foreign denominated assets, or if foreigners going to purchase rupee denominated assets, which are having maturity period more than 1 year, like shares, bonds, that treasury bonds, etc. Right? So that are directly recorded as a portfolio investment. But remember, those portfolio investments, right, do not involve acquisition of the control. They mean that investment කිරීම තුල අපිට controlling power එකක් හම්බ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. We just take the assets to earn investment income. Right? That is we call portfolio investment. Right? So in a portfolio investment, we can also see some sort of short-term investment. That is the maturity period less than 1 year also recorded. Again, in portfolio investment, යම් කිසි financial assets එකක් මිලදී ගන්නකොට සමහර වෙලාවට maturity period එක අවුරුද්දකට අඩු transaction උත් record කරනවා. So those are recorded as short-term investment. Okay. And other type of transaction recorded in a financial account is direct investment. Right? So what is a direct investment and how it is different with the portfolio investment? So direct investment involves the acquisition of controlling power of the foreign business or the domestic business by foreign investor. Right? That's why I told you in a portfolio investment, we invest our money but not the intention of having controlling power. Right? But in a direct investment, that is the investment we are incurring in order to take the controlling power of the business. That means we have to at least 10% of equity ownership should be there. එතකොට equity වලින් නැත්නම් ප්‍රාග්ධනයෙන් 10%කට වඩා වැඩි වත්කම් වලට ආයෝජනය කරනවා නම් ඒ වගේ ආයෝජන අපි සටහන් වෙන්නේ direct investment විදියට. If you are going to acquire some foreign business, so that type of transaction we recorded as a direct investment under financial account. If foreign investor acquiring Sri Lankan denominated business, the foreign investor can acquire a business like what we call the Tulhiriya paper factory. Sorry, textile factory, Tulhiriya textile factory. Right? Then they are taking the controlling power of the production, controlling power of the company. Right? So that sort of investment we call direct investment. And a part of the portfolio investment and direct investment, there are another type of investment. Those are we categorize as other investment. So those are including as bank deposit, currency investment, and trade credit. Right. So the things I want to highlight in here is regarding the BOP categories. Okay, we are having 3 types of category. First one is current account. In current account, we recorded the short-term transaction. Right, so that is basically the trade-related transaction, right? Like import and export, income and expenses relating with the investments or foreign investments, and the employee remittances, as well as unilateral transactions. And capital account, we are recording only the temporary occurring capital transactions, only temporary occurring, but there is no exchange of the financial assets. But here we just record it and it getting be set off within the very short time period. And the third most important category under the balance of payment is the financial account. So financial account record the transaction which are directly involved with the nation's creditor or nation's wealth position. Right? Actually, in here we are recording long-term capital inflow and capital outflow. So that capital inflow and capital outflow we can see under the 3 types of transaction categories. First one we call portfolio investment. That is, we are going to purchase financial assets to some sort of assets relating to the foreign denominators or domestic local currency denominators which are matured more than 1 year period. right? That is we call portfolio investment. And other thing we call direct investment, that is the transaction involving the acquisition of the controlling power of the foreign businesses. And a part of that, we are having another capital inflow and outflow. We recorded them as other investment category. So these are the things we need to understand into as the basic component in balance of payment, right? So balance of payment එක ඇතුලේ තියෙන මොනවද කියන එක basic දැනගෙන ඉන්න ඕනේ. අපි ඉස්සරහා එක කතා කරන්න යන්න. Okay. So then we are going to discuss about POP measures. Here we try to understand how countries are getting current account deficit, how countries are getting current account surplus, and how countries are getting net capital inflow or net capital outflow. Okay, so that's we call BOP measures. So we will discuss in next session.